Hello friend, welcome back to Acre Homestead. Today we are at the butcher shop picking up a whole hog that I had ordered from a local rancher and had butchered, and it is ready. The processing is done and it is ready for pickup. So I'm going to go over this chart a little bit later in the video, but for now we are picking up our whole hog. When you order meat from a local rancher and you have it processed from a local butcher, you are supporting two local businesses, which I think is pretty cool. And the meat always comes frozen. So all the meat in that blue cart is frozen. And what I'm doing is I'm taking the time right now as I'm transferring the meat from the cart and putting it into my car. I'm organizing the meat by the cut of meat. Deep freezers can be notorious for getting unorganized, and I store all of the meat that I purchase from local ranchers in a deep freezer to keep it as safe as possible. I like to reduce the risk of possible leaving the freezer door open. And so because they can be notorious for being unorganized, I like to organize the meat into these hard-sided totes, and I put these totes directly into the freezer. And that way I know that one tote has one entire cut of meat, and if I need to get to something at the bottom, I can just move one of these totes. So this is all the meat here. I will go over what all the cuts I got and the whole process of ordering meat from a local rancher. So now that I'm home, I've got all my meat organized. I do need to make a little bit of space in my freezer, but first here, this entire tote is leaf lard. So it's the lard that is from around the kidneys of an animal, and it's the cleanest lard flavor, so it makes it really good for making pastries. And then here I have bacon, and I have breakfast sausage in this tote, and the next tote is Italian sausage. So I will go over why I chose those cuts of meat and why, even though I ordered a whole hog, you aren't going to see any pork chops or ham or ribs in my haul. There's a very specific reason why. And I got a total of 62 pounds, and you'll know why that's kind of a low number in just a minute. Well, hello friend. It is about a week later, and my baby needed me when we were done filling the freezer. And so I just put everything aside and I hung out with him, and now I'm at my parents' house. The baby's with my dad, and I thought, you know what, right now would be the perfect time to sit down and finish this conversation of what it's like to buy meat from a local butcher and fill your freezer with locally sourced meat. I am super passionate about it, and so I want to just kind of share with you the process because it's a little bit different than going to your local grocery store and picking up meat to fill your freezer. And it can feel a little bit overwhelming and daunting if you're new to it, but it's really pretty straightforward and simple. So let me kind of go over the steps with you. So the first thing you need to do is you need to find a farm to purchase the meat from. So I personally, on my homestead, the only protein source that I have currently is chickens for eggs. I don't grow any of my own meat chickens, pork, or beef, and I'm not a fisher, so I don't fish either. So what I like to do is partner with local farmers in my area so that I can source the highest quality meat when it fits my budget and when I'm able to do so. So the best way I have found to find local meat producers in my area is word of mouth. That's where I found the farm that I purchased this pork from, was from my sister. Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, and a nonprofit website called localharvest.org are all great resources in finding local food producers in your area. Once you have found your farmer, then what you need to do is you put a deposit down on that animal. Once you've put your deposit down on the animal, there's typically a waiting period, and that waiting period can be anywhere from a few months to 6 months. It just depends on when you put that deposit down on the animal and how much longer it has to grow out to the proper weight. Once it has grown to the proper weight, then the animal is slaughtered. Once the animal has been slaughtered, you still need to finish paying the rancher for raising that animal for you. So the way you end up paying the rancher for the remainder of the fee is the butcher will slaughter the animal, they'll gut it and hang it, and you pay the rancher a specific price per pound for that hanging weight. And that hanging weight price can depend greatly on so many factors. The area of the country you live, what they're feeding that animal, how big the operation is. And so I don't want to give you what's a good price or what's not a good price because there's so many factors, and that's just something that is going to be region specific and feed specific. If they're feeding that animal all organic feed, the price is going to be higher than if they're feeding them conventional feed. And the cool thing about when you are someone who's shopping for a rancher to help partner with them and have them raise meat for you is you get to decide what's important to you and what values you want your rancher to have, and then you can align your values with them. And so once you have then paid the rancher the remainder of that fee for them growing out that animal for you, then that carcass goes to the butcher shop, and then they're going to process that side or whole hog, cow, whatever it might be for you. And you do need to pay the butcher for that service. You do pay the butcher to process that meat for you. And this is a really cool and awesome part about buying meat from local farmers is you get to decide how you want that processed. And you will get typically from your butcher shop a cutting sheet instructions, and each butcher shop looks a little bit different, but they all kind of follow the same basic cuts. And the Bearded Butcher is a great resource if you're new to this. It took me many years to figure out what I like from my butcher shop to fill my freezers. And honestly, what I have found is look at your grocery list and see what you're already purchasing from the grocery store and ask your butcher to process that animal into those cuts that you're already accustomed to cooking with and you already buy on a regular basis. When I first started doing this almost 8 years ago, I asked for all the cuts of meat because I thought that that is what I want. But then I realized when I asked for all the cuts of meat that I would end up at the end of the year with cuts that I never used because I don't cook with those cuts of meat and I'm not accustomed to cooking with them. And so then they would end up in the freezer, and then I would need a pantry challenge in order to get me to cook those cuts of meat. So now with my hogs, when I order a hogs, I like to order sausage, Italian and breakfast, and bacon, and I like to request the fats and the organ meats. I don't like all the fancy cuts because when I go to the store and buy pork, sausage and bacon are really the only two pork products I really purchase on a regular basis. And so I only request those things. It took me a long time to come to this conclusion. I'm not sure why, but now that I have, it has made my life so much easier because I'm not ending up with a bunch of cuts of meat that I don't personally gravitate towards cooking on a regular basis. There is something to note that the hanging weight is different than the packaged meat weight that is going to be going into your freezer. Those are two different things. What happens is the hanging weight has all of the bones and the fat and everything still included. And so once the butcher dresses out that carcass into the cuts that you want, you lose quite a bit from cutting off fat, removing bones, and typically from your hanging weight, you get about 60-ish% of whatever that hanging weight was into packaged meat into your freezers. So if your hanging weight was 200 pounds, then your packaged cuts of meat that are going to be going into your freezer are going to be about 120-ish pounds, give or take. And that can depend on quite a few factors. It can depend on the type of animal that was raised. It can depend on whether your pork chops or steaks have bone in or boneless. And so about a 60 to 65% for pork is what you're looking for a packaged weight going into your freezer. Now with my hog that I just purchased, there was something that's kind of weird that happened here. So my hanging weight was 183 pounds, and the amount of meat that I'm putting into my freezer is 62 pounds. And so that is about a conversion rate of about 33%, which is really, really low. And I don't think it had anything to do with my farmer. It had to do with the breed that was raised. And my farmer made right on this because that is not what they want to serve to their customers. So before I even went to the butcher shop to pick up this hog, my farmer emailed me and said that they had gone down to the butcher shop and they had realized the conversion rate from the hanging weight to the packaged weight was so low that they were going to refund their customers 50% of what we paid because of the conversion rate. Now my farm typically raises a standard hog breed that is for meat production. And they had experimented with coonies, which is a very popular homestead pig because they don't get quite so big and they are known for being a lard pig. So if you notice, I had so much lard that I took home. That is another cut that I like to take because I like to render the fat into cooking fats to bake with, to cook with. And so I requested all the fat, and you saw that I had one whole container full of leaf lard. That's the fat that goes around the kidneys. That's the clean fat for making pastries and biscuits and pie crust. And then I got a whole bag of just a lot of fat. And that's because these kunis are known for that. And my farm has decided that they're never going to raise this breed of pig again for meat production because the conversion rate is just so low. So that is a cool thing about too, when you build relationships with your farmers, is that they want to make good for their product. They stand, at least my farm does, they stand behind the product they are serving. And so they did offer to refund their customers 50%. And so they also offered for, if we want to put a deposit down on another hog, a half or a whole, that we can get 10% off the next hog we purchase from them that is their standard breed, because they want to stand behind their product and they want to have good customer service. I can link my farm down in the description box if you're interested in that. But if you're not local, then definitely check out those other resources to find farmers in your area. So I did decide to go ahead and put a deposit down on another hog. I'm probably only going to do a half a hog this next time because it's their standard breed. I will get more meat, and I will do the same thing where I'm just going to request the organ meat so that I can freeze dry that for dog treats for my dogs. I can get sausage, breakfast, and Italian, and I want the bacon, and I might not even request, well, I might request the fat and see if anyone in my family wants it, because I know that I'm going to have so much lard to render down from this one hog. Josh and I don't have any homestead goals to raise any of our own protein anytime soon on our homestead. What our goal is to do is to try to partner with local food producers in our area and purchase from them whenever possible. Now, you have seen my grocery hauls, you have seen me buy meat from the grocery store. I do buy meat from the grocery store, but I do try to purchase from local farmers whenever possible. That is my #1 goal, and that is something I am passionate about. So I hope that if it's something that you're new to and something that you want to branch out into, I hope this was helpful, kind of demystifying some of the aspects of buying meat from a local farmer. Now, I will leave some resources down in the description box for you. I will leave a resource for the Bearded Butcher because they go a lot into the different cuts of meat. That took me a long time to kind of conceptualize and wrap my head around. And I will leave some links for different cutting instruction sheets so you can kind of see what a typical cutting instruction sheet looks like, and for localharvest.org. So if you want to try to find a local food producer in your area, you can do that. They not only have on that website farms that specialize in meat production, but they also have veggie farmers, U-Picks, and dairy producers, and all sorts of good local food producers in your area, and even things like local farmers markets and stuff you can find on localharvest.org. So I hope that this was helpful. I really am excited that you took time to watch this and learn a little bit more about buying from local food producers. I hope that you are having a fantastic day, and I can't wait to see you next time. Bye, friend.